By the 5th year of my marriage to Ethan Cooper, I discovered he was secretly preparing to divorce me for another woman. Still in love with him, I decided that before he could bring it up, I would hand him my pregnancy notice first. That night, Ethan stood on the balcony and smoked through the entire night. After that, he broke up with the other woman. But when I was 6 months pregnant, she came to our home herself to deliver a wedding invitation addressed to him. "Mr. Cooper, my wedding is tomorrow. If you ask me to stay, I'll cancel the engagement," she said, then set the invitation down and left in tears. Ethan rose to chase after her. Watching him about to walk out, I clutched my aching belly and called out, "Ethan, if you dare leave today, I'll go to the hospital and have this pregnancy terminated." He wavered for a moment, but in the end, he still walked out. I first realized Ethan wanted to divorce me when the company's legal department began frequently asking for my signature, changing the company's legal representative, replacing the corporate bank account, and handling the title to our home. Ethan was also offloading properties at low prices, and the company's account statements told their own story. A business that had been healthy half a year earlier was now posting losses for several consecutive months. On top of that, Ethan kept going on business trips, each lasting more than 2 weeks. Whenever I asked, he said the company had problems and he was trying to reverse the losses. I didn't expose his lies, nor did I tell him I had already seen the video clips of him and his beloved woman at a Cindy Wan concert, kissing intimately. Clips that even hit the entertainment section's domineering CEO hot search list. I endured in silence, simply because I still had feelings for him. 5 years of dating and 5 years of marriage, an ending doesn't snap cleanly just because of infidelity. So even when he came home now and then with hickeys, smelling of perfumes only young girls favor, chose to sleep in the study and wouldn't even touch me, I pretended not to know. I didn't want a divorce, but Ethan did. By coincidence, the lawyer drafting his divorce agreement worked at a firm I had secretly invested in. So I not only knew how torn and irritable he was during that period, I even knew exactly when he planned to hand me the divorce papers. To save our marriage, I took the first step and went to the hospital for IVF. And on the night before he planned to raise the divorce, I called him specifically and told him to come home. Ethan was impatient about my call. The dinner I had cooked for him myself was reheated by the housekeeper 3 times before he finally came home. He didn't even look at the food on the table. He spotted me on the sofa, gave me a cool nod, and went straight into his study. After showering and dawdling for 2 hours, he finally came out. "Didn't you have something to tell me? Go ahead. What is it?" His tone was cold and hard, the way he talked to me sounding exactly like how he spoke to his employees. I said nothing. I calmly handed him the prenatal checkup slip. "I'm 2 weeks pregnant." Ethan's breath hitched, and the veins on the back of the hand clutching the slip stood out. I knew why his emotions were so intense. My mother died of obstructed labor when she gave birth to my younger brother. I've seen too many women compromise themselves for marriage, so from early in my relationship with Ethan, I'd said I was child-free and would never have children. Blinded by love at the time, he agreed without thinking. After we married, as we got older, he would now and then bring up wanting a child. Each time I refused and even scolded him sharply more than once for not honoring his original promise. And yet here I was, handing him a prenatal notice. He took several deep breaths as if finding his composure. "Thank you for being willing to compromise and have a child for me," he said. Then, clutching the slip, he stood up in a rush, so forcefully that his knee slammed hard into the corner of the table. "Sorry, this is just too much for me right now. Let me calm down first." With that, Ethan hurried back into his study and slammed the door shut. I didn't realize until I heard the echo of the door in the living room fade that I had been gripping the fruit fork in my fingers so tightly it had broken the skin of my palm. Blood was already dripping into the glass of plain water in front of me. That night, I smelled cigarette smoke in the house. Even though our rooms were far apart and the windows were on different sides, the scent was so strong I knew he must have smoked through the entire night. The next day, I was informed by HR that Ethan's new secretary had resigned, and the business transactions he had been trying to transfer were halted. The company's operations began running normally again. The day I received this news, I rested my hand on my still flat belly and cried until my pillow was soaked. In the end, I had failed to let a love that was once so good avoid ending in cold calculation and indifference. After that, Ethan returned to treating me the way he had when we were happy together. He accompanied me to every prenatal checkup, spent days choosing the best postpartum care center, and bought piles of baby supplies, enough to last until our child turned 10. He did everything a father should do. But he still lived in the study, never moving back into our master bedroom, never once making even the slightest physical contact with me. I even once caught him secretly looking at that woman's photos and videos, lost in thought. It was almost laughable, but more than that, it was bitterly ironic. Just like it is now. The woman came to the villa openly, her eyes full of challenge as she handed over his wedding invitation. After saying a string of strange, taunting words, she ran off. Ethan didn't choose to explain anything to me. His first reaction was to rush after her. Even when I stopped him and told him not to leave, he turned on me, his voice raw with pain and hysteria. "Lily, I've already come back to this family for you. What more do you want from me? She's getting married tomorrow. Can't I at least say goodbye to her?" I looked at his furrowed brow and the unmistakable disgust in his expression. Wiping away the tears that had fallen without my control, I answered, "No, Ethan. If you walk out of this house to chase her today, I will terminate this pregnancy." His entire body went rigid where he stood, his eyes locked on my face. After what felt like forever, he finally lashed out, his voice full of irritation and disdain. "Lily, you really are vicious." Hearing those words made my chest tighten until I could barely breathe. Vicious? All this time, to keep this marriage and hold on to him, I had pretended to be someone else. Against my own wishes, I'd endured injections until my belly was bruised just to carry his child. I'd been doing everything I could to keep him. So why, in his eyes, had it turned into something vicious? Tears poured down my face like a waterfall, but neither my tears nor the child in my womb could make him stay. With a look of pure frustration, he kicked the sofa hard. "Fine, go to the hospital, get rid of it. No matter what, I'm gonna find her today." Then, like some reckless 20-year-old, he bolted out the door in a panic, chasing after the woman. Watching his back as he disappeared, my fingers trembled as I dialed 911. Yes, since Ethan had made his choice, I would make mine. End the child he had so longed for, and destroy his perfect image. The ambulance took me to the hospital that same day. I had intended to go through with the abortion, but halfway there, I began to bleed heavily. I wasn't surprised. From the start of this pregnancy, the doctor had warned me repeatedly that at over 35, with my poor health, miscarriage was likely, and that I must avoid emotional turmoil. For 6 months, I'd endured in silence, reading Buddhist scriptures, studying the I Ching, just to keep my emotions steady. But Ethan's woman had gone too far. Every day she sent me intimate photos of her and Ethan in bed. She hurled vile insults at me, calling me an old hag, cursing my unborn child as a bastard, even sending me videos of deformed babies, claiming that's what mine would be. And now, she had shown up with a fake wedding invitation to provoke me in person. And Ethan? The moment he saw her cry, his heart was gone to her. Even when I used the baby to keep him from leaving, he still walked out. Maybe it was better this way. At least the child wouldn't have a father who didn't love him. My chest ached so badly it felt like it would collapse. In the 5 days I stayed in the hospital, Ethan never called. He didn't even know I'd lost the baby. But his WeChat profile picture changed to a couple's photo of him and that woman. $100,000 suddenly disappeared from our joint bank account. I didn't know when Ethan had become so brazen until my lawyer came to visit me in the hospital. That's when I learned Jessica was pregnant. Looking at the stack of photos my lawyer handed me, I let out a bitter laugh. There were at least 100, each one showing Ethan holding her hand, his eyes full of affection. There were pictures of him taking her to prenatal checkups, shopping with her at the market, even wearing matching wedding bands with her. The stabbing pain in my chest came back, my eyes filling with tears. Once upon a time, Ethan had looked at me with that same tender devotion. Now he was entirely hers. Seeing me cry again, my lawyer tried to comfort me. Lily, don't be too upset. It's just a divorce, I said, wiping away the tears from the corner of my eyes. That's all it is. Nothing I can't handle. Besides, I have more important things to do right now. Forcing the tremor out of my voice, I lifted my gaze to my lawyer. Do we have enough evidence to press charges for bigamy? He nodded immediately. Yes. I've already compiled everything into a complete file. What about proof of Ethan's years of tax evasion? Are your people fully prepared on that front? They are. 6 months ago, the evidence wouldn't have been enough, but now it is. And the evidence of bribery? All in place, he replied. I tightened my grip on the stack of photos of Ethan and Jessica. Then, according to your estimate, if we submit all this to the prosecutor's office, how many years will Ethan serve? The lawyer pulled out some documents, glanced over them, and said, About 8 years. Tears welled up in my eyes again. That's not enough. It should be at least 20 years. After all, Ethan once swore to take care of me for life. Let him exchange 20 years of prison for the lifetime of freedom he promised me. He loves Jessica so much, surely he'll be willing. The lawyer nodded without hesitation. All right, Lily, I'll make the arrangements. With that, he turned and left the room. I stared out through the floor-to-ceiling windows at the flock of birds flying past, and fresh tears slid down my cheeks. I should have known better than to trust a man. In the end, Ethan had become just like his father. I stayed in the hospital another 10 days, and during that time, Ethan still didn't contact me. But he was active, moving company assets, selling off fixed properties. I continued to act as though I knew nothing. It wasn't until I was discharged and returned home that I saw him again. The moment he saw the housekeeper helping me through the door, his eyes went straight to my stomach. His voice was wild, furious, almost hysterical. You really went to the hospital and got rid of the baby? How could you be so vicious, Lily? Looking at his angry face, I let go of the housekeeper's hand, my body trembling as I walked toward him. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I slapped him hard across the face, over and over. You're blaming me for ending the pregnancy? Do you even know the baby was lost in a miscarriage? That day, right after you walked out, I collapsed on the floor covered in blood. Ethan, how could you be so cruel? Your own daughter was gone, and you were off with your little mistress, wrapped up in romance. I ground my teeth as I said it. Even though I'd planned to terminate the pregnancy, when I truly lost that child, the pain cut to the bone. Maybe it was my desperate, grief-stricken tears, but for once, a trace of humanity seemed to flicker in Ethan. He pulled me tightly into his arms. I'm sorry, Lily. I didn't know. I really didn't know. Feeling the warmth of his chest, I clutched his suit tightly. Stay with me for 10 days, Ethan. After that, I'll agree to the divorce and let you be with her. Something in my tears stirred a little tenderness in him. For once, he gently wiped the tears from the corner of my eyes. All right, I'll stay with you for 10 days. I said nothing, just clenched my palms tightly. Keeping him had no other purpose now. I only wanted to give him one last chance. When we first married, I'd told him, as someone who didn't believe in marital fidelity, that I would give him 3 chances to stray. The first time I caught him cheating, I chose to play deaf and blind. The second time, when I found out he wanted to divorce me for that woman, I even carried a child to keep him. And now the third time, this time, I truly hoped he would come back to me. During the first 3 days of those 10, Ethan really did behave well. He stayed close, took care of me as if I were in confinement after childbirth, and, at my request, he even moved back into the master bedroom. Seeing the gentle look on his face, for a fleeting moment, I truly thought he might come back to me because of this. But by the 4th day, the cracks showed. On the 3rd day, he started taking frequent phone calls, slipping out of the house often. And then, on the 4th day, Jessica walked right into my home, her belly showing clearly. She shot a deliberate glance at my now flat stomach and smirked. Oh, the old woman's lost her baby. Look at you past your prime, trying to compete with a younger woman who's pregnant. Ethan didn't rebuke her. Instead, he looked at me apologetically and said, Sorry, Shinshin's temper hasn't been great since she got pregnant. Hearing him call her Shinshin in that soft, intimate tone made me suddenly realize Ethan had never once called me by any sort of affectionate nickname, not even when we were at our happiest. He always used my full name. So even at my best, I had never meant as much to him as she did now. The sting in my chest spread into a dull, aching numbness. Jessica stayed in the villa openly after that, even moving her luggage into the master bedroom. Watching her brazen behavior, I said evenly, "Get out. This is my home." She laughed mockingly. "Your home? You really don't know, do you? This villa is in my name now. If I didn't have such a generous heart, I wouldn't even let you live here. But since Ethan promised you could stay for 10 more days to reminisce about the past, I'll be nice enough to give you that." I hadn't realized that in transferring assets, Ethan had even handed over this villa. This place was filled with memories of us, happy ones, or so I thought. It was the reason I'd chosen it as the place for our last 10 days together. The pain in my chest grew sharper. Seeing the tears in my eyes, Ethan looked uneasy. "I'm sorry, Lily. You know the company's been in bad shape lately, drowning in debt. I had no choice but to sell the house. I didn't expect Jessica would use the money you'd given her before to buy it." The needless explanation only made my heart feel more numb. So Ethan loved Jessica that much? He gave her all the money, even the house? I held back my anger until I could manage to speak. "Since this place belongs to Jessica now, she can do whatever she wants with it. Ethan, start helping me pack. Let's begin with the 3rd floor, where all my portraits are." I headed upstairs first. Ethan used to study painting, and during the best times in our relationship, his favorite subject was me. He used to say that if he weren't in business, he'd have been a painter, and I would have been his muse. But the moment I stepped into the studio, Jessica sneered, "Ethan, didn't you tell your wife? You repainted all these, every single one of them, from my photos." I turned to him in disbelief. He looked flustered. I could only laugh bitterly. If even these paintings aren't unique anymore, then there's no reason to keep them. That night, in front of both of them, I told the housekeeper to take all the paintings out to the garden and burn them. After that, every day I'd clear out one room, moving from the 3rd floor down to the 1st floor living room. Anything Ethan and I had shared, I smashed or destroyed right in front of them. Jessica seemed especially pleased by my behavior, while Ethan would occasionally show a flicker of lonely sadness when I broke something. For a moment, I thought he was touched because the items brought back memories. But then he added, "What a shame, that was expensive." During that, every time he spoke, his words stabbed at my chest until it went numb. By the 10th day, I was exhausted from smashing things, tired of burning them, and even my heart felt like it could no longer register pain. That was when Jessica, wearing a smug expression, slapped the divorce papers down in front of me. "Had enough fun? Now you can sign this and get out," she said, tossing a check into my face. "Here's $5 million from Ethan. Take the money and get out of my house." I held the check in my hand, and to my own surprise, I couldn't shed a single tear. I turned my head one last time to look at Ethan. "Ethan, are you truly not going to turn back in this marriage? When we married, I told you I'd give you 3 chances to stray. This is the last one. Are you sure you won't come back?" Ethan's face stiffened slightly, but before he could speak, Jessica, sitting beside him, picked up a steaming cup of milk and hurled it at my face. "Lily, you dare try to seduce my husband in front of me? Ethan, do you have no shame?" She turned to him with an angry glare. "Don't forget, I'm carrying your son." She emphasized the word son heavily, and it made me think of the child I'd lost before. She had been a daughter. No wonder Ethan had chosen Jessica without hesitation. The scalding milk burned my skin, but I simply stood up calmly, picked up the pen, and signed the divorce papers. Then I took the check and tore it into pieces. "Thank you, Ethan, for at least not leaving me in debt after this divorce. I don't want the $5 million. I'll walk away with nothing." With that, I left the home I had lived in for 7 years, without taking a single thing. Perhaps it was the hopeless calm on my face that startled him, but Ethan ran after me. "If you don't take the $5 million, how will you live? Just listen to me, Lily, don't." I hadn't expected the last words he would ever say to me as his wife-to-be him telling me, "Don't." My eyes welled up again. "Ethan, you make me feel like even hating you would be a waste of my time." He reached out to grab me, but before he could, a group of uniformed officers entered. "Mr. Cooper," one of them said coldly, "we've received a report that you've been evading taxes. Please come with us to the station." Ethan's eyes went wide with shock as the handcuffs clicked onto his wrists. "Who reported me? I've never evaded taxes." Wiping away my tears, I took a deep breath. "I did." His whole body jolted, but I didn't even glance at him again. I turned and walked out of the villa. Behind me, he screamed my name, his voice hoarse and desperate, just like mine had been the day I begged him to stay. That day, he hadn't stayed for me, and today, I wouldn't spare him. This was a move my mother had taught me. When she lay dying in a hospital bed, losing both herself and my little brother in childbirth, her last words to me weren't to take care of myself. They were to destroy my father. She had clutched a U-disc full of evidence of his crimes. On the day of her funeral, 8 of his mistresses showed up, each bringing along a son. I looked at that crowd of preening women, each eager to take her place, and then at my mother's wax-yellow face. In that moment, I understood why she had been so desperate to give my father a son, because without it, she couldn't win. She had sacrificed herself and the son in her womb to keep her marriage. But my father hadn't even taken the time to attend her burial, too busy with other women. So as soon as the funeral ended, I anonymously submitted all the evidence of his crimes to the authorities. That very night, he was arrested at one of his mistress's homes, completely naked, still shouting that he had done nothing wrong. But whether he had or hadn't, the woman who had been with him for decades knew the truth. And that's why, in my marriage with Ethan, I had loved Ethan with everything I had, but I'd always kept one line I could use to pull the rug out from under him if I needed to. After that, his company went bankrupt, and once he was arrested, he never made bail again. During that time, Ethan's mother called me countless times, crying and begging me to help get him out. But I told her, calmly and clearly, "I'm the one who reported Ethan. He killed the child I was carrying. This is the punishment he deserves." Then I sent her the video from the ambulance, me covered in blood, fighting for my life. She never contacted me again. What surprised me most was Jessica. She actually knelt outside the gate of my newly purchased villa, crying as she pleaded, "Lily, please, I'm begging you. Help me find a way to get Ethan out. I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. I never should have treated you that way before. My baby can't grow up without a father." I looked at her tear-streaked face and calmly lifted her chin. "You cried beautifully. No wonder Ethan liked you. If you love him that much, why don't I send you to join old Lee so you can keep him company?" Jessica's face went pale in an instant. She scrambled to her feet and fled in terror. I watched her back without emotion. "Run if you want. Does it help?" If running could solve anything, then why hadn't I been able to run from the torment of my marriage? The only reason I was letting her be for now was because she was still pregnant. I had morals. I wouldn't harm a pregnant woman. But the day her child is born will be the day she's utterly ruined. The day she falls into the abyss. Ethan's case moved quickly. My lawyer quietly told me that the 20-year sentence was all but certain. When I heard the news, a small pang stirred in my chest. After all, I had once loved him deeply. Seeing him end up like this didn't make me happy. But a few days later, my lawyer came to me again. Ethan wanted to see me. I agreed. The day I went to the detention center, I wore plain white clothes. When Ethan saw me, his eyes reddened immediately. "Lily, I was wrong. I'm begging you, let me go. I know I hurt you, made you lose the baby, and made you hate me. In here, every day I dream about when we first started dating. You always wore white then. I thought you looked like an angel, so beautiful. Even when you were cold to me, I loved you desperately." Listening to his voice thick with tears, I calmly pointed out the flaw in his words. "Ethan, when I was with you, I never wore white. I thought our love was beautiful, and I didn't want to describe it with a color like white. I mostly wore red or pink. The only reason I'm wearing white today is because I'm here to attend your funeral in advance. You're facing 20 years, you might never get out, so think of this as me holding your service early." Fear flashed in his eyes, and the tenderness on his face twisted into pure hysteria. He glared at me, his voice breaking with pain and fury. "Lily, are you even human? We were together for 10 years, 5 dating, 5 married. Even if we divorced, we should have parted on good terms. But you sent me to prison. All these years I never hid anything from you. And you still struck at me from the shadows. I looked at his contorted expression and said evenly, "Ethan, have you noticed? Your face right now looks exactly like mine did the last time I begged you. When I cried and called you to come home for dinner. When I cried and told you, Ethan, I missed you." "Come back to me," I said. "That was the look on my face then, and you're wearing the exact same look now, cold, merciless, not caring at all about the years we spent together. You've been calling me vicious, but what exactly have I done that's so vicious? You're the one who broke the law. I didn't hold a gun to your head. I just did my duty as a good citizen and reported your crimes. You, on the other hand, had affairs during our marriage, fathered a child with another woman, and in the end, still tried to secretly transfer assets behind my back. You have at least 100 million in assets, but you were only willing to leave me 5 million. You thought that because you were a businessman, you were clever enough that I wouldn't notice. But Ethan, I loved you. I wasn't stupid. You brought your mistress into our home right in front of me. You even transferred our marital home to Jessica openly, and still thought I wouldn't notice? How laughable is that? If you'd had even a shred of respect for me, you wouldn't have been so shameless." My words made the color drain from his face. "If you felt the divorce settlement was too little, you could have told me," he said. "Why go as far as sending me to prison?" I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "If I told you, would you have listened? Your heart was already gone. You always thought your company was yours alone, but did you forget the startup capital came from me? When you were broke, I stood by you. If you had fallen for another woman and just admitted your mistake, if you'd even been a little less ruthless, I would never have been this cruel to you." I finished angrily, stood, and turned to leave. But as I walked away, Ethan suddenly broke down, crying, "Lily, I was wrong. I'm sincerely apologizing this time. Please, I'm begging you, don't hurt Jessica. Do whatever you want to me, but please, don't hurt her or the baby she's carrying." I stopped, and a sudden laugh slipped out. I turned back, reached into my bag, and pulled out a medical report. "This is your examination report from 6 months ago," I said. It listed his basic health data, and also his urology results. Sperm motility at 0. His eyes reddened instantly, his hands trembling as he stared at me in fear. I looked at him steadily. "Ethan, you really are a fool. Did you truly think Jessica loved you? She's only after your money and a higher status. The baby I was carrying was conceived with sperm you froze 5 years ago. Unfortunately, you were the one who killed your last child." Without another glance at him, I turned and walked out of the prison. Outside, my lawyer gave me a surprised look. "Mrs. Grant, you should have given me that report earlier." I smiled faintly. "It's a fake." His eyes went wide with shock. But I simply said, "Don't be so surprised. It's not going to court. As long as Ethan believes it, it's real." And Ethan had believed it, completely. That very night, I got the news that Jessica had been attacked by a stranger and had miscarried. When I heard it, I just sat there, gripping my own prenatal notice, unable to snap out of it. In truth, I'd asked myself countless times, if I hadn't miscarried, would I have really ended the pregnancy out of spite? And my answer was no. Maybe at first I didn't want a child, and maybe I really did plan to use the baby to control Ethan. But it was also true that I'd begun to feel genuine maternal love for the child I had never even met. The memory brought that same dull, tingling ache to my chest, but I didn't dwell on it for long. I picked up my bag and headed to the hospital. After all, we had both once served the same man. Jessica lost the baby after being beaten, and by all rights, I should go see her. When I arrived at the hospital, I saw her lying in bed, face pale as paper. For a fleeting moment, I found myself connecting her to my mother, even softening enough to consider letting her go. But then the phone in the room rang. "Hello, Attorney Chen? Can we pin this attack on Lily? They can't find the person who hit me anyway. Why not let Lily take the fall? No witnesses? Then we'll just find someone to testify. How much will it cost?" Hearing Jessica's voice, each word laced with venom, I lowered my head and let out a cold, mocking laugh. Women should never let themselves go soft, ever. The moment she hung up, I pushed open the door and walked in. Seeing me, she instantly snapped. "Lily, what are you doing here? You ruined Ethan, you killed my baby, and now you're here to hurt me too. I'm telling you, I'll make you pay with your life for my son." I ignored her hysteria and pulled out a thick stack of debt contracts. Jessica, I'm not here to trade insults. I'm here to collect. Her eyes widened in shock. Collect? What? I smiled faintly. Ethan transferred a lot of business into your name, didn't he? Well, here's the bad news. Every company where you're listed as the legal representative took out loans from another company, my company. Altogether, that debt adds up to $20 million, and now that those companies have all gone bankrupt and are being liquidated, guess who I'm here to collect from? Her body tensed, struggling against the pain, her face twisted in disbelief. I kept smiling. Jessica, you really are naive. Do you know why Ethan put those companies under your name? Because he knew the business was failing and needed a scapegoat. He was protecting me, because of my paintings. Her pupils contracted sharply. Impossible. Ethan would never do that to me. I looked at her terrified expression and said evenly, Do you know who made you lose that baby? It was Ethan. He promised me that once things between you two were solid, he would get rid of the child you were carrying. With that, I pulled out a photo. Ethan with the man who beat her and caused the miscarriage. Jessica's face went ashen. I gave her a calm smile, then stood and left the ward. So much for love until death. As long as the misunderstanding between two people is big enough, there's no such thing as love that lasts forever. Gaining love is hard, but destroying it is far too easy. I had barely stepped out of the room when the monitor beside her bed started beeping frantically. Her wails echoed down the hall, and I just smiled to myself. Serves you right, I thought. After all, I had lost my child in exactly the same way. Jessica was rushed into the emergency room for massive bleeding that day. And just a few days later, Ethan's sentence came down, 20 years. I went to the courthouse that day. When he saw me there, he broke down, crying so hard he could barely stand, just like my father when he was sentenced years ago. During the time my father was being held, the thing he said to me most was, I'm sorry. Looking at Ethan's tear-streaked face now, I honestly couldn't understand what he thought he had to apologize for. My father had never hugged me, never kissed me, not once in my life. And yet, during his prison term, I had still gone with the lawyer to try to get his sentence reduced. Now, seeing me in the gallery, Ethan cried so hard his whole body shook. After the verdict, during the first family visitation, he grabbed my hand in pain and asked, Lily, if I hadn't cheated, would we have been okay? I shook my head. Ethan, even if you had cheated, we still could have been okay. When we got married, I promised you I'd allow you 3 chances to stray in this marriage. I endured and endured, hoped and hoped. I just kept hoping you'd come back to our family. But in the end, I forced myself to be brave enough to carry your child, and you still angered me to the point of losing it. So, Ethan, don't call me heartless. I had nowhere left to go. Hearing my words, Ethan cried even harder. I'm sorry, Lily. I must have been out of my mind. I wronged you. Looking at him, so much like my father had been back then, with tears of guilt streaming down his face, I still couldn't understand. If you were going to feel guilty, why hurt me in the first place? That very day, after leaving the detention center, I had Jessica, fresh out of the hospital, brought straight into court. I demanded not only that she return all the property Ethan had given her over the years, but also that she assume the debts Ethan had left in her name. Jessica couldn't repay them. The court labeled her a defaulter, and I sold the debt at half price to a collections company. The money itself didn't matter. What mattered was that I instructed the debt collectors to make her life miserable from time to time, for at least 20 years. After all, for a woman who claimed to love Ethan so deeply, it was only fitting she remain faithful to him, for as long as he was in prison. Once I had arranged everything, I packed my things and left the country. This place was already a wasteland to me. I had no intention of ever coming back.